Hi, Cassandra, are you there?
I
Hi.
am. Hello.
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for putting together the information. This is just a public forum. The select board's not going to deliberate on this issue. But
Sure.
Chris said you had some information for us, and then if we have any comments or questions from the audience, we'll entertain those as well. So it's 6:45. Please feel free to take the floor.
All right, no problem. I'm going to, if Kevin could allow me to share screen.
What? Hmm? Uh, Kevin's back on his laptop.
No problem.
Okay. Floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is just a little bit of background information for the liquor license request. For those of you who may not already know, I wanted to provide some background information on the proposed amendment. This article's intention is to petition to the General Court to grant Cohasset the ability to issue an additional 5 on-premise all alcohol liquor licenses. This proposed article addresses a critical need for our growing community. It would grant Cohasset 5 additional on-premise all alcohol licenses specifically for local restaurants. Since 2000, Cohasset's population has grown by over 15%, yet the number of available licenses has remained unchanged. Currently, there are no licenses available, which presents a significant barrier for our local restaurants looking to expand and for new full-service restaurants to establish themselves here. These additional licenses would support our local economy, encourage dining options, and enhance the vibrancy of our community. This proposal reflects a practical step to meet the needs of our growing town while promoting economic development. A little bit of background. The allowable number of licensed restaurants is tightly controlled by the legislature based on rules written at the end of Prohibition, which was almost a century ago. Unfortunately, getting a license is tough. When Prohibition was repealed in 1933, Massachusetts political leaders enacted strict caps on the number of restaurants that would serve beer, wine, and liquor. The rules enshrined in the state's general laws determine the number of places allowed to each city or town serving food and drink based on one criteria, which is each city or town's population. For all alcohol licenses, we have a total of 14 allowed, but none of them are currently available. This means that every single license is already in use, leaving no room for existing businesses to expand their offerings or for new full-service restaurants to open. In contrast, for wine and malt licenses, we are allowing 5 in total, and 2 are still available. While this provides some opportunity for establishments offering beer and wine, the lack of available all alcohol licenses creates a significant limitation for businesses aiming to provide a more comprehensive dining experience. The potential to increase Cohasset's ability to license further all alcohol consumption restaurants could drive further community support. Encouraging local engagement when residents choose to dine, socialize, and spend time in town creates a sense of community and bolsters local business. This kind of support not only helps individual establishments succeed, but also reinforces the overall vibrancy of Cohasset. Increasing the number of licenses boosts restaurant success by signaling demand for more dining options. This demand attracts new businesses, which can lead to greater diversity in our restaurant scene and make Cohasset an even more appealing place for residents and visitors. Finally, thriving restaurants and related businesses contribute to revitalizing the surrounding area. They help create a dynamic environment that encourages further economic activity, drawing more people to the town and benefiting other local enterprises. This is an investment in Cohasset's long-term growth and community well-being. As I've just discussed, increasing liquor licenses not only strengthens community engagement, but also signals demand and attracts new businesses. First, increased liquor license generates significant revenue for the town. This could come from application fees, annual renewals, and the added sales tax generated by the increased business activity that they drive. Secondly, these licenses play a key role in boosting the local economy. By attracting new restaurants, bars, and event venues, we could create jobs, encourage tourism, and make Cohasset an even more attractive destination. And then finally, supporting our local businesses is critical. With access to licensed establishments can drive, contributing to a vibrant community and fostering commercial growth. This proposal isn't just about numbers, it's about investing in the future of our town. As we consider the economic benefits of increasing liquor licenses, it's important to focus on why this matters for Cohasset's future. The ability to meet licensing demands sends a strong message to developers and entrepreneurs, shows that Cohasset is a place where businesses can thrive, creating an environment that attracts investment and supports long-term economic success. A vibrant dining and entertainment scene also plays a key role in enhancing the town's appeal. It improves livability, strengthens the town's reputation, and draws in new residents and investors. This proposal is about fostering a dynamic, prosperous future for our community. In an industry with notoriously tight margins, and alcohol sales are a game changer for profitability. Liquor has a longer shelf life and lower labor costs compared to food, making it a key factor in helping restaurants stay viable and competitive. The National Restaurant Association highlights the significant role of this sector in our economy. Restaurants are the second largest private employer in the United States, with 1 in 10 Americans working in the industry. It's also a sector that provides career growth opportunities, as 8 in 10 owners started in entry-level positions. For Cohasset, increasing liquor licenses doesn't just benefit the restaurants. The typical Massachusetts restaurant employs about 22 workers, meaning that this initiative could create over 110 new jobs. Additionally, more thriving restaurants means higher meal tax revenues, directly supporting the town's economy. And then to close, I wanted to leave you with this quote from Jessica Muradian, the Director of Government Affairs at the Massachusetts Restaurant Association. This quote encapsulates everything that I've discussed today. Increasing liquor licenses isn't just about supporting restaurants. It's about investing in our town's future. It's about creating opportunities for economic growth, fostering local businesses, and building a stronger, more vibrant community. By requesting this change, we position Cohasset as a town that values innovation, supports its local economy, and enhances the quality of life for all residents. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Cassandra, very much. That was very informative. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience? Yeah.
Check him up.
Yeah, it's not a meeting, so he doesn't have to give his name, but you can come up.
I'm Doug McGregor. You want me to come up first?
Yeah, so they can hear at least.
Okay,
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, Doug McGregor from 7 Border Street, and I'm one of the owners of Salty Days.
Yeah.
And I'm now one of the owners of the new place that I'm building where Feng Shui was, which is Stoked.
Oh, Stoked, right, right.
I'm coming straight from construction, while I'm dressed like this. A question was, are there any applications to upgrade licenses currently from existing businesses that are trying to go from beer and wine to all alcohol? Has there been any interest in that? No, okay. So I was hesitant to come. I was gonna sit in the back of what I thought would be a crowd and just listen,
Yeah,
but here I am.
I thought it was gonna.
And I gotta be right up front, because any interest I have in this is obviously self-serving, because I'm in the business. I also love this town, love the village and the harbor, and I want to see good things. That's why I invest in this town. But as someone who's invested in about 30 restaurants around the country, and then the ones I really care about locally, I was surprised by the number 5, because I think we need more licenses. I want to say I support this.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that 5 is a good number and you put good thought to that. It kind of shocked me because there is an ecosystem that the existing small business owners, of which I'm one, share, not so much when we're busy, but in the rest of the season, it can be tough. Things can be thin. So when you add more licenses to the system, it's obviously bringing in competition. Competition's healthy and good, but it does have an impact. So we heard all the positives. Just be aware that there could be a negative impact of diluting the ecosystem that you have here, some of which is a little fragile right now, some of the operators who I do talk about with.
Mhm, mhm.
So there is a potential downside.
Yeah,
I live on the harbor. I know there's a need for a license on the harbor. I think there's a license need for a couple other things to keep things lively.
Mhm.
But 5 was just a number where I was kind of like, wow, that's a lot when there's 14 now?
Yeah, there's 14 now, 3 of which are private. So Cohasset Golf Club, Cohasset Yacht Club, and the American Legion Post.
Yep,
So essentially what's open to the public are 11.
yep.
And we might not get 5.
Is that how, I've actually never been part of the government process. Is that
Yeah.
you go and they might come back with,
They might come back with a lesser number. I know Boston was just granted 232, but I don't know how many they asked for.
so I guess that's my point. As someone self-serving and in the industry and all that, just be aware that there can be unintended consequences when you add, more competition to the existing small business owners
Yeah.
that some of whom are already sort of struggling and trying to make things work. So it can be,
Yeah.
it can have an impact. And that's kind of all I wanted to say. Just make sure that the 5 is, I mean, are there current applications are there interest?
Well, we have a hearing that's been continued for January, for which we don't have a license.
Yeah.
And as we, talked about the number, we look geographically, we know downtown is very dense.
Yeah.
We know 2 of the 3 on the harbor are private clubs. We know that Beechwood has 0.
Yeah.
And with the revitalization of Beechwood with the new general store, there could be more opportunities in the Beechwood neighborhood. We know there's 2 over North Cohasset, one of which is a private club.
Yeah.
So we were looking at it geographically to expand the vitalization from downtown to the harbor and then branch it out. Yeah.
Like I said, on the record, I support more licenses.
Mhm.
I've had no, this is the first I'm kind of getting involved in it. I haven't not even involved, but just saying, just be cautious with the number because it can have other consequences. So
Mhm.
I'll trust you guys to make good thoughts.
Okay.
I would have thought in a town like this, maybe 2 or 3 or something, but it can change.
Maybe you get none.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know how it works, but yeah, I know as someone who does invest, sometimes I know it can bring more development in, but at the same time, when we do look at a place like Opening Stoked, we look at the ecosystem and say, what is our potential for competition? And we say, hey, we've gone into places where we say, hey, this is the last thing, or we're going to be the only game in town. That's self-serving, of course, but it does sort of like changing zoning on somebody when they invest and say, wait, you can build a factory next to me, that changes the ecosystem.
Right.
So anyway, I guess this is me just saying, on the philosophical level, just be cautious because it can have other consequences, particularly from some of the smaller operators who may be struggling.
Mhm.
So I guess that's it.
Mr. Grady?
Well, what was your name again?
Doug
Doug.
McGregor.
Well, we gave you one. And we also have a competition over there as far as the golf tavern.
Yeah.
You got the new Feng Shui. So again, we're trying to be cognizant. I don't think asking for the license, we're going to arbitrarily give up because we don't want to hurt a restaurant. At least everyone's excited about your place coming in.
Yep.
But, the chair had mentioned it perfectly. So Beechwood, that expands a little bit.
Love that
So
idea.
it's not an idea of just whipping out of your back pocket every restaurant who comes in, but it's nice to have it.
No, it's nice to know that the line.
Something exciting comes in that's
Yeah.
gonna be a benefit to the town and to everybody in it, like your place.
Yeah.
So
We do the
that,
takeover of an existing license.
Yes.
Right,
There's one there. And that's when I referenced the ecosystem and sort of like that. It exists and sometimes licenses come in and they go out and it sort of exists.
Mhm.
but
it is-
understand that one just moved down the street. That's a very similar environment. We
What's
have
that?
Feng Shui two to a degree, moving right down the
Right
road.
next door to me. Yeah.
So we
Yeah, which-
ended
which-
that. That's what I'm getting at. Is
Yeah.
again, Beechwood, it's not something I don't think any board is gonna arbitrarily hand out to hurt anybody, especially a business like yours.
Yeah.
Because we want them vibrant.
No, like I said, I would have felt dishonest to sit back and not say
Mhm.
something,
No,
because
you-
it does have an impact and there are concerns. But again, on the record, I actually support more licenses. I love more competition, but just be aware that if it was 20 licenses, I'd say that's too much.
Right.
If it was 1, I'd say that's not enough.
Right.
There's some number, so I'm just saying I trust you, or we should trust you to make a good decision. And
Yeah.
just make sure there's thought put into it. And that's it. So, and I love hearing the thought of where these things could go. It all sounds good to me. So,
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
yeah, thanks guys.
And when do
Very
you
much
open?
appreciated.
Oh, that's a question on everyone's. We're officially saying January.
Okay.
We are getting approvals and we're going to be cooking and doing stuff, in-house and training,
Mhm.
which is sort of starting soon. And
Fantastic.
then open to the public in January.
Okay.
We decided not to rush it. We decided to let everybody have a real Christmas. Not be stressed out.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully early January.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Looking
Rick.
forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Creighton?
Yeah, thanks for bringing up some good points. I've supported increasing the number of restaurants. There's a good presentation, but it was a very boisterous presentation. And when we deal with something like alcohol, and there are issues that we should be thinking about, we should be involving Safe Harbor in this. Because we know that alcohol is a great social lubricant. We also know that it contributes to a tremendous amount of family stress and alcoholism and things like that. And I think town needs to be always be aware of that, and concentrating too much on an alcohol-centric dialogue, something that I think we should have some balance in that. So I would certainly urge that the town further support, as we already do, Safe Harbor, because it's an antidote. There's another thing which, when you spoke about concentration, I've been involved in liquor licenses approvals from neighborhood perspectives for 30-odd years, when Boston and all that. When you have too many liquor licenses beyond the ability of the market to support it, there's a race to the bottom. The standards get a little sloppy, over-serving. It's hard to not over-serve when you're thinking about losing your investment. You know, competition is good. Too much competition is driving towards the bottom, and I think the town needs to be aware of that. I would have liked for our presentation to be a little bit more balanced about the challenges, and the challenges are, as you well pointed out, if there's too many liquor licenses, nobody can be successful. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now it's 7:01 and we need to call to order the Cohasset Select Board meeting of Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. It's 7:02 PM. We are in person live at 91 Sawyer Street, Wilcott Commons. We can also be accessed on Facebook Live streaming on the Zoom link. That's the last page of the agenda, and the Cohasset 143 cable television. So may I have a call to order, please? Mr. Plex,
Chris Plex here.
Mr. Grady,
Paul Grady, present.
Ellen Mar present.
Jack Ray, President.
Davey Frog present.
We are a little bit behind, but we do have public comment. If anyone has any public comment that they would like to discuss, we invite you up here to the microphone, name and address. Anyone? No? Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to continue the public hearing on the FY 2025 tax classification. This is a continued hearing from November 19th, 2024. So we have our Director of Assessing, Rachel Carlisle, is here. Hi, Rachel. Come on up.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the finance team. It was it's a lot. It really is a group effort. Linda Cole, Diane Phillips, and the consulting team, and Chris has really helped out as well. It's a lot of collaboration between all the departments to get all this information. So I truly appreciate it. As you know, the purpose of this classification hearing is for the select board to vote on a residential exemption, a residential factor, and the small commercial exemption. And my goal is to provide you with enough information for you to do that. So in the packet, just a few things. I won't go through every detail here, but the residential class, that's actually not in this bag. Residential class increased by about 8.5% this year. Commercial only increased, it's actually less than 1%. We only had two valid sales, and they were already at a 100% assessed to sale ratio. So it was hard to increase based on those. Industrial increased 3.6%, and personal property was 2.5%, with an overall average of 8%. So total residential percentage is 93.9%. Commercial, industrial, and personal property is at 6.8 or 6.08%, which is where it's been for the last few years. It really hasn't changed much. Let's see, so as far as the levy, on the levy page, we have, the levy limit from 2024, that was 45,221,473,000, plus the 2.5% increase of $1,130,530,000, plus the new growth, which is all permits, new businesses, new personal property, of $750,604. The leaving us with the levy limit of $47,105,634,000 for FY '25. And then we will add in the debt exclusions. This is actually not just the debt, it also includes the stabilization funds. So $200,411 of that is new debt from the public safety building. And then we have the 2.3 million that you voted on at your last meeting for the stabilization funds, which is 800,000 for the roads and 1.5 million for the schools. The estimated tax rate, which one other thing to point out, which I forgot, the estimated levy for FY '25 is 49,000. This is the information I get from the consulting team on the tax recap. $49,613,174. This could change slightly once after a special town meeting. There's some movement in that. Usually it's not very much though, so. And then that would mean that the tax rate, which we're estimating to be 11.58, could change. It's usually cents, like maybe 11.59, 11.57. So hopefully it should be around there. And this would be what it would be as with a uniform rate, which is a factor of 1, it would be 11.58 across all classes. So the average single family value for FY '25 is up 8%. That's we're at $1,402,547, bringing the average tax bill up 3.5% to a little over $16,000. And then 59 cents of that tax rate of the 11.58 is attributed to the debt exclusion. And then the last thing I'll point out is the shift. So to shift to give the residential class a 3% reduction in their tax rate, it would have to be shift to the commercial class by 50%, which is the max amount of shift. So you would be saving the residents for a max shift. It would be $524 for the average single family. And that would increase the average or the similar assessed value commercial property by $8,000.
How many?
8,000. So the tax rate for residential would be 11.21, and the tax rate for commercial would be 17.37. So you could see that that would really not be a great thing. It would minimal benefit to the residents and a huge impact for the commercial. So real quick, I'll go over the what you have to vote on, just a quick review, and then you can, and then I will give you the recommendations that my board has for those. The first is the residential exemption, which is common in resort communities and large cities. It provides relief for owner occupied residential properties. The Board of Assessors recommends a no vote on the residential exemption for FY '25. The second is for adopting a residential factor. As I stated earlier, the residential factor The residential class is approximately 94%, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property is still about 6%. Evidence suggests that towns with commercial, industrial, and personal property between 20 and 25% could cautiously begin to consider a split rate. But once split, it is difficult to go back to a uniform rate without placing a burden on the residential class. A split rate may also be considered anti-business and discourage new business from coming into Cohasset. The Board of Assessors recommends a residential factor of 1, which is a single tax rate for the fiscal year of 2025. The last vote is for small commercial exemption, which shifts the tax burden within the commercial class, and the exemption goes to the building owner, not the business owner. Unfortunately, property owners don't always pass on the tax savings to the small business tenants. The Board of Assessor recommends a no vote on the small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2025.
So we have those three things.
Yep.
To move and vote on.
Yep.
And do we vote the tax rate tonight, or do we wait till after special town meeting?
You actually don't have to vote on the tax
Okay.
rate. So that's it. That gets done after the recap is done. So you vote on this tonight. And then after the recap and everything is submitted, that is when, but it's kind of a misconception because you're voting on the shift, and the factor. And then, but once that's done, then once the recap is done, we'll have that final number. So,
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Flex?
Questions?
Mr. Grady?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Mr. Creighton?
All set?
Mr. Farad? No, thank you very much. It was all very clear. I love the numbers and, people will say, well, my tax rate is going down, but my assessed value is going up, and it's the math that happens.
Yeah.
Because as I had learned, the 2.5% applies to the whole dollar taxation,
Yep.
not to the rate.
Not to, yes.
Yeah, so, okay, so we'll go to the first motion. I would like, someone, looking for a motion that the town of Cohasset does not adopt a residential exemption for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Grady seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Second, may I have a motion for the town of Cohasset to adopt a residential factor of 1, a single tax rate for fiscal year 2025?
So moved.
Mr. Grady moved it. Second?
Second.
Mr. Plex, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And the third is, like a motion that the town of Cohasset does not adopt the small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Mr. Grady moved it.
Second.
Mr. Plex, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great.
And
Thank you.
close the public.
Oh, and now, can I have a motion to close the public hearing on the, tax classification?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Plex, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you for waiting. Okay, next up, license permits and events. First up is Cohasset Triathlon, and Cohasset Kids Triathlon. Do we have Chief Quigley? Is he gonna be on? Okay,
Bill?
Good evening.
good evening. Thank you for coming. So, name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Bill Burnett. I'm at 28 Mohawk Way. I'm a resident of Cohasset for 24 years. Coming before you for approval for the triathlon. As I was driving over, I'm thinking this is our 17th year. And it's just, to me, when I think about when I got together with some friends and I said, let's put together a triathlon in Cohasset, I jumped and I said, let's do it. And it's just tremendous opportunity here for our town and to showcase what we have here in Cohasset. So I'm coming before you, hopeful for approval for the adult triathlon on June 22nd. Along with the kids triathlon, which is just behind us here at the swim center for August 2nd for next year.
Okay, so we'll take them one by one.
Okay?
Because they're separate events and
Yep.
separate applications. Does anyone have any questions?
Can I make a motion? to approve?
Chief Quigley, are you there? Oh, he's not here. Okay.
Yeah, I have been in contact with him and
Yeah, the part of your application is his whole presentation to us as well. So, this is, as you said, 17 years. I think you guys have it down.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So, can I have a motion to approve the
I would
Cohasset?
make that motion gladly.
Second.
the Cohasset Triathlon for June 22nd, 2025. Mr. Grady made the motion, Mr. Creighton seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, kids triathlon.
Oh, and then sorry, Madeline. So the second event would be the Kids Triathlon. That's now been going on 8, 9 years at the swim center for kids ages 6 to 14 years of age. That benefits the swim center, frankly. Any proceeds from that does go back to which is a nonprofit. And I think a wonderful, wonderful asset to our community in that facility. So I still help out with that as well. So I'm proposing August 2nd of 2025 for that event.
Okay. I have one strange question.
Yeah,
Are the kids do the swim portion in the big pool?
that's right.
And do they all have to have passed the big pool swim test?
If parents have signed up their child, they typically would know they know how to swim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just because.
The little guys, are
Yeah,
and so, but the little guys do 2 lengths of the pool.
okay,
And then the older kids do 6 lengths of the pool.
okay.
Yeah. It's really neat. Sawyer Road is closed for a little time.
Mhm.
And the kids, so there's no vehicles on the road for the biking and the running as well. It's a really neat event.
Awesome. Okay.
They,
Can I have a motion to approve the kids triathlon on August 2nd, 2025?
so moved.
Can I have a second?
Gladly second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Burnett. You can
Thank
open
you
up
all.
your registration now.
We're gonna open tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you for your years of
Thank you.
doing this. It's just amazing. It's homegrown. And it's like an institution.
Well, but it's just for the board and thank you for all the time you're putting into what you do here for the board. But this triathlon is the largest in New England,
Is it? Yeah.
size wise. Yeah, I mean, it's hands down, it's the biggest. So thank you.
Thank you.
Go Cohasset. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next up is an amendment to a previous application for Santa is Coming to Your Neighborhood on December 7th. I believe it's for the addition of a food truck to the event. And all of the details. Oh, are you here to talk
Yes,
about it? Okay.
um,
Name and address, please.
Paula Murphy, 30 Atlantic Street, Marshfield, Massachusetts. Actually, our food truck has died,
Oh,
so we will not be using it. I've already worked out the parking and the police details with Chief Quigley,
mm-hmm.
but we were wondering if in lieu of having a food truck, if the same person who was going to do that, just provide hot chocolate and some pre-made sandwiches or breakfast type sandwiches on a table at the harbor next to the Salt House.
I don't know. Doesn't that have to be permitted to sell food outside of because a food truck is a special permit?
That was not gonna be a problem. Food truck's already been permitted, so it was just an easy add-on.
Right.
I think we'd have to talk to the Board of Health, so, you can approve something conditional on approval by the health. Department.
Okay. How does everybody feel about that?
That's
Fine with it?
We'll go by whatever.
Yeah. Chief Quigley, thoughts?
Definitely has to be, sorry, I get a little cold and I was stuck in cyberspace. Yeah, definitely has to be approved by Board of Health. If she can walk it through that process tomorrow, I'm okay with it.
All right. So can I have a motion to approve what
The event is on December 7th.
Yes.
Saturday?
Just noting the timeline, if that conversation doesn't happen,
We won't have food.
you won't have food or you
Meaning
won't have
if
an event.
if we don't get the proper channels to sign off, meaning the Board of Health, then we won't have.
Right. So we already approved the Santa Claus is coming. So this was an
This
add-on.
is strictly about adding on the food.
It was just so it was adding on the food truck, which is now not happening. Now it's adding on food. The original event is happening.
I would make a motion to conditionally approve. You get the clearance from the chief, the Board of Health, you know. Can I ask you a question? What kind of trucks, what kind of food you serve in the truck?
It was, Jen, can you speak to that?
She was gonna serve Jennifer Palmer, 285 Jerusalem Road. She She was gonna do brunch type items like breakfast sandwiches, hot chocolate, donuts.
That's an awful thing it broke down, but that's why I'd like to initially
She
approve
needs
it.
a new engine.
Oh,
It
So
just broke down on Saturday, so.
Oh, that's no.
okay.
it's not happening.
Okay, so we have a motion for a conditional approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Farag seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay, all right. So, Chris, will you just update us by the end of the week if this is a go or a no-go? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, board and committee appointments, Roads and Sidewalk Committee, Nicholas Lombardi. Is he online or is he here? No, he is an appointment for the citizen at large member for a one-year term on the Roads and Sidewalk Committee. No one's here. No one else has applied for this position. Mr. Grady, do you know?
On the roads and sidewalks, I would
Yeah.
make a motion to approve Mr. Lombardi and thank him.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, we have, an appointment for Megan Fisher as an associate member for an open three-year term on the Council of Elder Affairs. Is she's, okay, would you like to come up? Oh, hi. So if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, we got your packet, so you don't have to go through your whole resume, but
Okay,
how long you've been here and your interest in.
so I've been a member of, I've been a resident of Cohasset for 4 years. And would like to be better integrated into the community because I plan on staying. And one way to do that is to volunteer. I own my own business, helping seniors, meet the challenges that they're facing. So I have some expertise in this area, so it seemed like a really good fit.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you
Thank you, yeah.
for stepping forward.
I don't want to say this, but I didn't recognize you because we're not on the beach. But, any questions? No, so can I have a motion to approve Megan Fisher?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for
Thank you.
volunteering.
And we like that volunteering. There's lots of other opportunities.
One thing at a time.
Well, yeah. Okay, next up, Harbor Committee, Jake Wheelwright, interview appointment for full member for a three-year term. Hi, Jake, I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me tonight. Jake Wheelwright, 49 Mill Lane.
Just a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the Harbor Committee.
Sure. Yeah. Lifelong Cohasset resident, graduated Cohasset High in 2010, went to school with John, Alan's son. Looking to get more involved in the town. I spend a lot of time down at the harbor, probably 5 days a week. Have had boats since I was in high school. Have some free time, so I figure I might as well start to participate in the town a little bit, and thought this was a good opportunity.
Do you have any questions? for Mr.
What's your
Wheelwright?
favorite boat?
The one that I own, my 22-foot boat.
No, so you're a power nut sail.
I have a lot of respect for sailing and a little bit of a hand at it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Good answer, Jake. And anyone else, any questions? No? So can I have a motion to approve Jake Wheelwright for the Harbor Committee?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
very much.
Congratulations, Jake. Thanks for
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
volunteering.
Thank you.
And next up, we have the Chair of the Harbor Committee, Mr. George Baumgarten, who's going to give us an overview of what's been going on.
I am. I'm going to work off the TV,
Okay,
but I do have a leave behind of what we're showing. So,
you.
because it's somewhat dense, in case you want to refer to it afterwards. So thank you for having me and Harbor Committee present today. I'm joined by, I think, the rest of the spectator gallery here is Mike Sardina and our newest member, Jake,
Mhm.
and Susan Bryant. So thank you guys for being here. My plan today is to try and compress a year's worth of activity and even more than that into the next 10 or so minutes.
Okay.
So I'll share a little bit about what we've done, what we see on the horizon, and also discuss the priorities we've identified and open that up, since we're an advisory board to you. Would welcome hearing from you as well on what we're proposing to do. So what I'm going through today is just climate resilience, which is really the headline item for our meeting today. And then talk about the Cohasset Recreation Survey, touch on Captain's Walk, which you guys have seen, but we'll talk a little bit more about that and then cover our priorities. So thank you. You want to flip? So at the end of June, there was a CZM grant funded through the planning department that concluded in a presentation led by the Woods Hole Group, Nasser Brahim, who's done work for about 3 years for the town, going through the continued sort of peeling of the onion of what we might do about climate change at the harbor. And so I'm going to compress that 8 months worth of work, an hour-and-a-half presentation, into about 4 slides and 5 minutes. And really, this is the most important part. So the purpose of the study this year was to go through, yes, there's flooding, and what are some of the concepts that we can do to address it. But I think the real headline, and that sometimes is a little bit, it's obvious, but it's missed, is what is this flooding that we're talking about? If you look at present day, what you're seeing is a heat map, sort of from Woods Hole, but just to orient it, if you stare at the right-hand side, Cohasset Harbor, the dark black, is upper right. That's the cove. And with the new Harbor Cohasset condos right to its left. The green area is Elm Meadows. You'll see right in the middle of that is the wastewater treatment plant. Down on the bottom right is the Gulf River as it comes through the bridge and ends around, and it's entering right around Black Horse Lane. And then just for reference sake, we have St. Anthony's over on the left-hand side. What this is showing is that today, so the team is working with the Massachusetts Coast Flood Risk Model, which is a broadly adopted set of statistics that this organization and all flood management organizations in Massachusetts are using to model the potential for floods. The prediction today, 2024, is that we stand about a 2% chance of flooding in Elm Meadow. So either once every 50 years or there's a 2% chance in any year, however you want to do it. A little bit further down around Black Horse Lane is a much higher probability. Yes, go ahead.
I thought I had you, but I lost you. So the 2% chance is the percentage likelihood of a flood occurring over what time period?
In any given year.
So that's,
So another way of looking at it is there's a chance once every 50 years.
so when I see 10%, that means statistically once every 10 years,
That's right.
that's going to flood.
And you know, this is all projections and modeled, and it's based on a whole bunch of stuff, including sea level rise and the incidence. In our case, and we've all seen this, of extreme storms. I mean, sea level rise isn't gonna happen tomorrow. It's happening gradually. We've seen extreme storms in Cohasset in October of 22 and before that, and certainly this year that we've seen extreme storms hitting the US, and that seems to be increasing. So that's sort of our focus, is really thinking about the big hurricanes with storm surge and lots of rainfall that could happen in Cohasset.
If I could ask just one more.
Please do.
Based on what you have on the screen, what qualifies as a flood?
Oh, as a flood is when it exceeds the flood level. So it means that it's going to go probably in this place to anywhere between a foot or two. I'm not the expert on this stuff, but a foot or two above the normal high tide, in which case through storm surge or water surging through the Border Street Bridge and coming into the Gulf would overtop the roads.
So that's exceeding high tide, not exceeding grade.
It's exceeding king tide and exceeding grade. That's what's going to cause it to, you know, water's going to come flowing down Black Horse Lane. It's going to flow across the top of the Cove and Border Street and Summer Street. That's what this would be. So it's a higher tide than we've seen. We haven't seen water overtop those places, at least since I've been here.
Thank you.
If you go to the next slide. So this is their projection 5 years from now. And thank you for your questions. The numbers don't look so good. The numbers show, again, due to all kinds of climatic factors, We saw 5% in green in the main body. Now it's 20%. So once every 5 years, 5 years from now, there's a potential expectation of significant flooding. And the dark purple is also significant. That's deep flooding. I can't quite see what it is up there, but it could be to the tune of 2 to 3 feet of water in that whole area. So all the color coding, and again, it's a lot to absorb right now. That's somewhat why I gave you the sheets. But we're seeing significant flooding. Just by reference, if you look at Cohasset Harbor and the Gulf, they are black because they're always full of water. That's the reason they're black. But the darker it gets, certainly in the 50% range, that is a lot of water and it's deep. And so any houses in that area, are going to incur some significant flood and flood damage. So what this is showing, again, if you look at the sort of headline on the bottom left, the risk model projects a risk of flooding and damage at Elm Street, South Main, and Summer. And they expect it to increase, in our next 5 years, 5 to 10 times. The risk does. Whether we see it,
Excuse me. You know what factors they use to calculate that risk factor? Are they assuming a certain amount of global warming or sea level rise or increase in storms?
I mean, I would say yes to all of it. It's that's why we pay the Woods Hole Group is the expert in this. It is a model, so it has a ton of factors, but they're certainly projecting based on what they've seen a sea level rise over the past 20 years, plus the other, expectations. There's a lot to it.
I know there
This
is.
is a summary.
I was hoping, George, that you could get it down to two.
Yeah, that would be,
Are there maybe like 2 or 3 major factors?
I'm gonna have to ask you to take it on faith that the data is what it is at this point. If we flip to the next page. So fast forward 20 years, this is 25 years from now, which is probably certainly the amount of time I've lived in Cohasset. And it shows a much higher risk picture. And I'd like maybe just to focus on the bottom left-hand side. These are quotes from Nasser Brahim, who's seems like a very experienced and practical lead of this project. His commentary about this 2050 slide is he says, the probability of flood events is a 50 to 100% chance every 1 to 2 years on average. Says this turns a rare flooding event into a significant nuisance and impact on everyday life. Cohasset Village floods significantly all the way to the west of the commuter rail tracks. And we're talking 4.5 to 5 foot flooding depth along Elm, Summer, and South Main Street. This is the models they're working with. This is,
Right.
they're working with the planning department and giving grants for us to at least be aware of what's going. And Brian Joyce has these same models and he actually uses them on a practical basis to model. This is all the storm flood pathways studies. So if I'm going to go through a bunch of other slides, if you're to think of anything and leaving this presentation, this is the part that concerns the Harbor Committee most, is this is likely to happen. It's so gradual, none of us can see it, but what could and should Cohasset do about it? Let's flip to the next page. The majority of the study of this past 6 months, the first two quarters of this year, we're sort of assuming that flooding is what's happening. The study group, the consultants focused on concepts to try and address that flooding. My objective tonight is not to go through each of the concepts. There's a lot of detail that took the planning team a couple of hours to go through. The idea, though, there are concepts. They've identified a top 3. Since their project finished, Harbor Committee has been staying with this. We have another concept we've identified in the bottom right. What we believe is that there are steps that Cohasset can take in the near term that are not necessarily prohibitively expensive. So this isn't thing to say, there's no way we can, stop the rain or put our finger in the dike. There are practical things we can do to address that could be part of paving projects that the Department of Public Works takes on. It could be part of some commercial and private development. A lot of things could happen. But there is work that can be done. And, you know, anyway, there's opportunities. What this is showing is the two main storm flood pathways are at Cohasset Cove. That's the biggest area of risk. And then what we'll see on the next page is Black Horse Lane and Summer Street. The reason for the focus on these in Cohasset, a lot of people say, you know, my area of Cohasset is flooding. What are you doing about it? The focus here is really around protecting of town infrastructure. The focus is on the wastewater treatment plant, the public safety building, downtown Cohasset. And what are the most, you know, what are the biggest areas of vulnerability in Cohasset relative to those areas? There's a million other areas and we have no idea what's going to happen other than people are going to get wet. But these are areas of significance. Already, the grants that the planning board have gotten are helping the wastewater treatment plant do some mitigation things like plugging manholes in order to prevent stormwater from running into those. Those are good. They're raising some of the infrastructure, the electric pump plants up higher, so to avoid the very instance we see. But that's sort of the least we can do. If we flip to the next page, one back. Okay, I'm sorry, you were probably here already. So Black Horse Lane is the other area of high risk. The consulting team identified, these are now concepts 4 and 5. I could touch on them a little bit, and then Harbor Committee has also identified some others. Interestingly, sort of concepts 4 and 5 say, let's build it. Black Horse Lane, there's going to be a river of water flowing down Black Horse Lane. Let's build a dam at Black Horse Lane so we can stop that water from flowing further into the Elm Meadows and into the village. The people on Black Horse Lane are going to have water 3 or 4 or 5 feet in their houses, but that's sort of, you know, what you get for living at the coast. We've identified other solutions that may be in the interest of both the town and the Black Horse Lane that could actually mitigate flooding closer to the Gulf River. Again, these are all concepts, but we believe this is our highest priority in Harbor Committee to focus on operation of the harbor and what are steps that Department of Public Works and the people of Cohasset could potentially do to reduce the risk or create better protection in the case of floods. All of this stuff would run through DPW, Brian Joyce. There's lots of hydrodynamics, tide gate action that has to be built into any solutions we're talking here. This is the last slide I have here. There was a lot to this. The information, the slides, the videos, the YouTubes are all on the cohassetmass.org site. It's a lot to absorb. And before I leave this, and again, this is the most important thing I wanted to share tonight is this. Are there questions that you have?
Lex?
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. There's a lot to it. There's a lot that needs to be studied, but I'm glad you're bringing it to the fore and bringing it to people's attention. I think that's the first step. Figuring out the solution is going to take some time. But I think you're doing the right thing by bringing it to people's attention, and we'll have to work on the solution.
Mr. Grady?
I'd say it's going to be a collaborative effort, but, and again, I'll repeat my colleague's sentiment. Thanks, George, for bringing it again up. We know flooding is an issue, so when we know it's probably going to get worse over time.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Farag? Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna, well, thank you, George.
Anytime, Jack.
Tremendous amount of work. As I understand, don't you have on the town website a lot of this data? Or can you have it put on there?
It actually is all there. This is
That's what I thought.
this is the condensed version. This is the Reader's Digest
I know
version.
that. I've been through there, but I just wanted to let everybody know that we should do that, and we might want to have a blurb on the opening
Yep.
page. Direct people to this, because there is a lot in there, but it's important stuff. And I also like that you're identifying the crucial infrastructure like our water and sewer plant, downtown, and the roadways that need to be prioritized. So you've done a good job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work on this Harbor Committee. I was able to see one of the initial meetings, presentations that CZM had done with the Harbor Committee. I didn't get to see the last meeting that you had, but I know in between the previous one they had, they were going to get to the next level of investigation and doing some borings and soil testing and things like that. Have they gotten to do that yet, or where are they in the process of doing it?
They did do that as part of the last project.
Okay.
And so the results you're seeing and the concepts they displayed are based on those soil readings and the additional work they did.
Was there anything that they found that was different from the previous meeting or in doing the soil?
I think they were validating,
Pretty much what they
they
had.
were validating what they had. What I would offer, things don't stay static. Even since they left it, they finished in June, the Cohasset Harbor condominium project came online and is fully built. And we see opportunities with that based on the height at which it was built, for example. And those things were not part of their working assumptions necessarily when they started. So we do see an opportunity with any of these consulting groups that there is great to leverage their expertise. It's great to combine it with local knowledge. We feel the people of Black Horse Lane know a tremendous amount about what happens on Black Horse Lane, and we want to engage them. So our objective going forward, the consultants did a nice job of attempting to hold town meetings. They held a afternoon event that a number of people attended. It was good. We think there's an opportunity to do more, even without a grant happening and without consultants happening, to try and get engagement from the folks on Black Horse Lane, from the people at the Cove who really understand this and certainly have a stake in it as either owners of commercial or private real estate.
Yeah.
Yes, Jack.
On that. Do you think the seawall is high enough on the captain's wall?
Well,
And I'm putting you in a,
oh no, you can ask us. We know it's not.
okay.
Not to withstand these floods, is not even close. But some of the solutions to protect the infrastructure actually don't need to involve seawalls. We can essentially create a high wall at the Cove between the highland, there's concepts for doing it without actually having to address seawalls, which is a very expensive and Concom, issue when you're doing seawalls as well. Not that we wouldn't want to do more, but those things start to number into the tens of millions to address that. And we're looking for solutions that maybe the town can do and has domain over that it could provide a near-term solution.
And you are also actively involved in the grant process, because to the financial, we are going to need
Yes.
grants to.
So on this, the planning board ran the last grants that finished up in June. There is not another grant in process, and that's moved to the DPW, Brian Joyce. So I think, as I understand it, DPW has the next step on applying for grants that would call it peel the onion back one more layer. These concepts that I went through are not shovel ready. They are concepts to go forth and do additional study on in order to make selections. We don't have estimated costs or anything coming out of this study. It wasn't at that level.
Just to let us know we have a problem and the extent of the problem.
They let us know the extent of the problem and identified a number of pretty different solutions at different costs and different utility levels.
Good start.
Yeah. Let's move to the next slide, Kevin, if you could. So a year ago, and you guys can flip the page or when we get there, I'm good. Yeah, next slide. A year ago, we talked about doing a recreation survey to call it inform the efforts of Harbor Committee and help us identify our priorities, or at least validate priorities and identify new ones. So we ran a survey in 2 months, in March through May. We're very pleased to get 350 responses. If you look at this, we had about 80% of the respondents were from Cohasset. 20% were from outside. We did extend this survey to mooring holders who are not necessarily Cohasset residents, and it was open to anybody who uses Cohasset Harbor, which we actually found useful. The majority of respondents, as you can see, sort of fit the Cohasset profile. Over 90% were over the age of 35. Interestingly, more than a third of the respondents are in the 65 and older camp. Good response from our older community. In fact, people at Wilcott Commons were very active participating here. If you could flip to the next, Kevin. There's some sort of, I don't know if they're obvious or not. We were confirming. What do people do today at the harbor? Well, they use boats. That's an appropriate thing to do. But also very, importantly, they love being around the harbor. If they're not on a boat, they're walking and running around the harbor. And I think, that tells us that, focusing on the surround of the harbor in addition to just what's in the harbor is pretty significant. When we look at digging a little deeper on how people do access the harbor and the boating, again, not surprisingly, there's a number of people responded. They use their private boats to be in the harbor. But we were also pleased to see that the institutions around the harbor, the nautical institutions of sailing clubs, CMI, CSCR, and to an extent the yacht club, are providing a good level of, call it public access for those who don't have their own boats. So we've confirmed that. If you go to the next page, Kevin. This was really our key question. And others were demographic, is what would you have us do to improve the harbor? And so, in this, again, thinking back to when we ran this survey, when all the commercial establishments were closed and everything was under construction, people want their restaurants back. Not surprising. They weren't there when this survey was run in March, and they're still sort of not there. They wanted green space and benches. So kudos to Harbor Cohasset for having a nice big walkway with 2,000 square foot green space and benches. Good for them. And they want more. More parking, not surprising. That's a standard refrain. But that being said, looking for creative solutions for parking on Government Island and other places is something we're interested in. More public amenities like restrooms and water fountains. And again, I think restrooms, there's plans for that, and that'll be great when Cohasset Wharf and others come online. Wider continuous sidewalks and safer crosswalks. That's really an opportunity for the town. And we have some ideas on that. But we were looking for some level of validation that that's the right thing to focus on. More public dock space, more facilities. This was one that sort of was surprising to us. More facilities for kayaks, stand-up paddle boards, rowed and paddle boats. A lot of people don't feel like they do have access to the harbor, and they don't have, unless you're a member of one of these clubs, how do you do it? And so this is interesting to hear. We've already talked, Derek Goodwin, who sits on our committee and also on the Rec Commission. They've explored it. It's how could you create a kayak or sup livery in Cohasset? So we used, anyway, that's our survey. There's a lot more detail on that also on the Harbor Committee page. The full results are there, including some very interesting verbatims. We got tons of verbatims of what people thought we could and should do around the harbor. If you want to flip to the next page, Kevin. So we've been very pleased to see a lot of good stuff coming online on the Captain's Walk. It's been a focus. When the Harbor Committee thinks about Captain's Walk, it's not just, it starts with what Cohasset Historical Commission did of, 40, 50 years ago, creating some historical markers, but it's everything about walking around the harbor. So starting with Harbor Cohasset, their beautiful promenade and green space. Cohasset Wharf that's in process looks like it's going to have great public access and be a draw between those two places. We're thrilled to see what the DPW did with South Shore Tech High School very recently, rebuilding that essentially broken down fence and putting in something that looks like it's going to be durable for years to come. And then the Eastwick Inn, you guys know more about that than we do, but at least their proposals for public space. A lot of this all driven by Chapter 91. So I sort of thank Chapter 91 and the developers for creating much more access to the harbor. That looks very promising if it happens. Small stuff, bottom left, the DPW regraded the walkway that goes from Government Island to Mariners Park. not trivial. It's, that's the kind of stuff that we like to see. And then on top of that, on the right-hand side, brand new sign, designed and funded through Cohasset Historical Commission, in the middle bottom is now in Mariners Park, and it's giving the history of the Cohasset Colonials factory that was there in 1990. So the Captain's Walk has effectively now, because of that, been extended all the way there. It used to stop really right at the Harbor Masters, right at the replica. And then on the right, again, sort of figuring into the broad scheme of Captain's Walk, 2 new docks delivered by a grant that the Harbor Master sought that are specifically designed for launching kayaks and stand-up paddle boards. There's one at the Parker Avenue dock and there's one at Lawrence Wharf. Not well known, but it's the kind of thing that we think in Harbor Committee, and we should promote that to let people know, yes, there's access. And if you have these type of crafts, you are welcome to use those docks and launch your boats. So these are the kind of things that we like to see more of based on what we've heard from the rec survey. If you go to the next page, we see additional opportunities. So in particular, on the left-hand side, we've explored in forums with the public, where we invited the public in 2023, opportunities to improve Border Street. Border Street, believe it or not, is a pretty wide roadway, much wider than it actually needs to be in a lot of places. And we see opportunities for having a delineated sidewalk, delineated parking, and a roadway that is actually just meets all the Massachusetts specifications for width, and so we've looked at that there's opportunities that Cohasset has, either, if some certain resilience projects come and you have to redo and repave Border Street anyway, or as a part of standard paving that the DPW might take up, or as something that everybody agrees is a good idea. All those things are doable. And it really meets some of the criteria that we heard from the recreation survey. And on the right-hand side, the Harbor Master has proposed a 100-foot extension of the dock at Parker Avenue, specifically to create more access, temporary tie-ups, additional places for boats. It's not going anywhere at this point. It's not particularly expensive. I mean, the reason it's not is it leverages an existing rampway that's already there, an existing dock. But it's Harbor Master doesn't want to move on it until it's extremely clear that Cohasset owns the space where it would be put in. So, whether it's getting direction from this group or a survey by Norfolk County, again, I'm sure you guys have lots of thoughts on that, but a survey that delineates where the waters are between Cohasset and Scituate is something that is of concern.
Does that dock take away any moorings?
Believe it or not, no. It is essentially dead space, and
Because you can see a boat there, which
it's close to it.
it's close to it, so, you couldn't go bow in, you could go alongside,
I think,
depending upon the swing of the boat.
yeah, I mean, this was a point in time courtesy of the satellites of Microsoft that
Okay,
we did
yeah.
this picture, but
Yeah.
it is as we look, it's one of the few places of real estate in the harbor that looks like it could be enhanced with very little downside. Again, that's the Harbor Master identified this, Lori did. And it's the kind of thing that if it went forward could probably be funded through CPC funding if it went that way, since it's about recreation. But it's the kind of thing that we look at in Harbor Committee, responding to the town and trying to create the appearance and the reality of better access.
And it's low hanging fruit. We can show some measurable improvements.
It is. Next page, Kevin. Thank you. This is the last page. And I'm going to go quickly through this, but the idea is this is what we're planning to work on. We are an advisory board to you. So if there's other things either now or later, or things that you think we should be considering that are not on this list, that's why we're here. but our focus is our top focus is climate resilience at the harbor. It's much broader than what I showed, but it's a big topic. The Captain's Walk, we've cast a big net on that. Captain's Walk is everything from parking and historical signage to recreational accessing, all that stuff, the surround of the harbor. The Government Island Pier, we haven't talked about, but there's a big focus of the municipal harbor plan that was approved by the state in 2020, was to make sure we're supporting the commercial fishing fleet. And we're not doing too much. They're just hanging out. But one thing that is really an opportunity is a conveyor belt that would be installed on Government Island alongside the gangway that would allow the commercial fishermen to take their heavy objects and have a conveyor belt up to the pier instead of having to haul it up, which is how they do it today.
I know one of their other big priorities, I know, 'cause I hear about it very vocally, very frequently, is water down to the docks. It's just a seasonal thing, right?
Okay,
And if you just might have put that on the list.
I will.
And I can spare you talking to some of the lobster guys.
Well, we do have a good, we have a good dialogue with Adam Donovan and Mike Lane, who don't live in Cohasset, but are very active commercial fishermen in town, and they've been great participants in our committee. And we pretty much put them in the spotlight when we're talking about things like this, because they're the ones who know. But we do see this conveyor belt was actually funded in a previous town meeting. It's now looking for some sort of financial approval to move the funding from Lawrence Wharf over to Government Island.
I remember that.
And it would be great to do that, to show some consideration that we in the town haven't given up on, not given up. It's
Run a water line along next to it and then they'll leave.
That's something.
For the next.
That's something. The last things we're talking about is, it's been on our list, but to identify a multi-year dredging plan. We're participating. I'm actually a member of the MVP 2.0 initiative, which is a state grant that's into Cohasset with a number of participants. That's municipal vulnerability preparedness. And we want to update the Cohasset Harbor bylaws. They're a bit out of date. And we want to make sure that some of these projects, if again, working with the select board, if it's climate resilience stuff, if it's conveyor belts, if it's dock extensions, that those are identified in the capital plan and the budget appropriately. Our stuff pretty much goes through the harbor master, but we sort of have an interest in trying to influence how that works both with you and with town meeting.
Great. Any further questions, comments? No. So I was just going to ask, what do you need from us at this point? Other than I made a note on that funding issue on the conveyor belt. You said we have to move it from one place to another. So we'll figure that out. And then we'll talk to Lori about, we'll get the harbor master in about the dock extension. I mean, if I recall a multitude of maps I've seen regarding the border, the line of demarcation in the creek literally goes straight down the middle of it. So I don't, from the picture, it doesn't look like it would be in Situate waters, but I appreciate her concern to make sure that we're not. My dad used to say when his boat would swing to the west, it would be in Situate. When it would swing to the east, it would be in Cohasset because he had a mooring down the creek. So, okay.
Well, you know, and if you don't know, is there any further movement on potentially doing a survey of the harbor by Norfolk County or anybody else?
Not as far as I know, unless you know anything, Chris.
Our public works department has been working with Norfolk County. I'm not sure of the current status,
Okay.
Okay.
because our line is the county line. Same.
Yeah. I guess wanted to confirm, we're available to you, but the priorities we're working on is what we're going to keep working on.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that we would like to leave this meeting with, it's that that the climate's resilience and the potential for flooding is very significant and very real. And to the degree that other committees are focused on it, or that we are trying to allocate our $1 million worth of road budgets or what have you. These are things which we think need to be a very important part of the design consideration and allocation for this. We're going to continue to meet with townspeople, citizens in these areas, and try and get additional information and impetus behind this.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
thank you.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could say yes. Yes, please.
Susan Bryant, 251 Forest Ave. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about, one is all the flooding stuff that the Woods Hole group did. Most of their parts were focused on the public lands. And so the ones that we've added are focusing on private land opportunities. So that's important as you look through that to evaluate.
Okay.
So that's something new as opposed to what you've already been given by the Woods Hole group, I believe. Right? Okay. The other thing I wanted to clarify is that our survey is strictly a recreation survey. So it is thorough on the needs and wishes regarding recreation, but it is strictly a recreation survey. So don't confuse that with commercial wishes, because those were not included in that survey. It's recreational only. And we do have responsibility to maintain the working aspects of the working waterfront, as that's what defines a harbor in many ways in America. And the third thing I wanted to mention is you should all know that CSCR, the Center for Student Coastal Research, has a State of the Harbor event we run annually, usually in this room. That's usually me at the microphone up there, not sitting down at all. And this is the time of year where we can take input on what we might cover. I'm kind of inspired by this conversation to talk about flooding in it. We'll talk with Jack Buckley about that, but I first want to invite you all to save the date of March 27th, and hopefully you can all attend. And if you have input on what you'd like to see happen at that event that CSCR runs, please talk to me or Jack Buckley.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Agenda. Okay, oh, we're a little bit behind. Town project updates, 135 King Street. Michelle?
So as far as 135 King Street, I just wanted to give a quick summary of what's been happening since the money was approved at special town meeting 2023. It was $10.4 million that was approved. We purchased 135 King Street in April of 2024 for $2.4 million. We soon thereafter put out an RFP for OPM services, and we issued a contract in August of 2024 to P3. We then sent out an RFP for designer services in August and awarded to HKT in September. So we haven't wasted any time. We're really moving along quickly. HKT has provided schematic design. The design incorporates the needs of the police, fire, and emergency management departments. It's a conceptual design, and further refinement is necessary, and that's when we'll get to design development. The building has since been evaluated for its structural integrity, ADA accessibility, utilities, mechanical systems, any site work, and a site survey is presently taking place this week. The building we purchased is approximately 12,000 square feet. All structural design criteria for the building will be based on the latest building codes and standards, and all energy codes must be met when we renovate this building. To accommodate both police and fire, 2 additions will need to be added to the structure: an apparatus bay to house the ambulance and engine for the department, and a sally port and detention center to comply with requirements for the police department. We've had several programming meetings, and the original design has been modified by almost 10,000 square feet. So both Chief Dockeray and Chief Quigley have been able to cut 10,000 square feet from their original plan. As we move through the process, we'll obtain several different cost estimates that will allow us to make informed decisions. Each estimate is a guesstimate until we go to actual bidding. Bid day is when you're going to get actual pricing that we can rely on and present. Our intent is to continue with the design phase, moving toward design development, which is less conceptual, more refined, and indicative of what the future public safety building will look like. Once design development is complete, we'll host a series of public forums to answer any questions and obtain feedback. The intent is to bid the project and have all information available at annual town meeting with a groundbreaking scheduled for fall of 2025.
Questions?
Well done.
Were there any schematic designs done yet at this point? Or
There's been 2 different schematic designs done. They're looking at a third right now based on some different feedback. We're waiting for topographical information and survey results to come in before they present that to us.
The window. The window.
As part of this project, we also talked about a renovation to 62 Elm Street. And that same $10.4 million was allocated for both projects. Same process has taken place. The same OPM is working on both projects, as well as the same designer. This building has also been evaluated for its structural integrity, the accessibility, mechanical systems, and a site survey is also ongoing. The existing building, as you know, is home to our police and fire departments. And during multiple walkthroughs and engineering studies, there were many inefficiencies noted. There's lack of fire protection, inadequate ventilation, some mechanical systems at the end of their lives. The roof is at the end of its life. The accessible entrance doesn't meet the current code requirements. We were going to add decontamination showers, laundry facilities, additional storage, and a fitness area for the firefighters. By addressing the inefficiencies, 62 Elm Street will meet the future needs of the fire department. And also by renovating 62 Elm Street, we'll have additional space for town offices. The fire department is not going to take up the entire building, so therefore leaving room for some flexibility for town offices. The renovations to 62 Elm will be phased with some work beginning in fall of 2020.
Any questions? No? Thank you, Michelle. Now the town roof? Town hall roof?
So town hall roof, as you know, $325,000 was appropriated at last town meeting. We sent out the RFPs. The lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder was Dickey Matos Roofing, DMR, for a price of $90,750. During a pre-construction call with DMR, we were notified that for the safety of employees and residents, that the town hall should remain closed for the period of time in which they're redoing the roof. The duration of the roof is approximately 4 to 5 days. It's going to begin December 10th. They're going to work Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, if necessary, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is all weather pending. They did give us a project superintendent and their phone number in the event something we need to contact someone, so we'll all have that phone number. During this closure, all departments will be available by phone. We had a call today to discuss the logistics of where people will sit and how they'll be notified. There are departments that don't necessarily have cell phones, but they'll be given one to forward their phone, so they'll always be in constant contact. The building department will be housed at the recreation department Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. They'll be there answering the phone. They won't have access to their records, so please just be patient. It's a matter of 3.5 days, so we're trying to plan ahead. Parking in the town hall parking lot will be limited. There's a staging area for the roofers in the middle section of the paved surface. And so we ask that if people are parking in the town hall parking lot, they park on the outer perimeter. We anticipate town hall to reopen to the public on December 16th. We've also had contact with the church next door because there is a school there. So we had a conversation today to alert the school to use the front entrance of the church instead of walking down the walkway in the event of any falling debris. So we're going to speak to the neighbors tomorrow and alert them as well to make sure that they park along the outer perimeter and just of the work ongoing at that period of time.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone?
I have a comment. Michelle, thanks so much. So I'd like to bring something up as being on the town hall working group. You know, the roof is a heck of a start and fantastic job bringing it down to 90,000. I'd like to see about moving ahead with, to do anything with that building, even going forward. We've got to sprinkle it. That's from the building inspector's report. We've got to get sprinklers in there. And that's just a baseline of getting started to do whatever iteration the building finally falls down into. But I'd like to see about, could we possibly start looking into that?
So
Because that's a capstone of getting started. We can't do anything without that being done, period.
Sure. So the engineering for the sprinklers is complete. So we have the design for the sprinkler system. The ADA study has been completed, to note the inefficiencies that we'll have to rectify if we go forward with sprinkling the building. So I think it's just.
Well, I'm gonna differ on that for a second if I may be mistaken. I remember speaking to John Hallen, that if we're doing it in an approach, I know it triggers a number of different ADA requirements. But we can sprinkle the building if we're doing it in a lockstep approach, you know, picking up projects and that we're showing a path forward. For what the building is, so it doesn't all have to be done out of one huge ask, if I'm not mistaken.
So I don't think you are mistaken, but I will say we don't have enough money to sprinkler the building at the present time, so that would have to be probably an article at annual town meeting.
Yep.
To move forward, like I said, we do have the engineering study. We could come with bids in hand to annual town meeting if that's the desire of the board.
I think even the town hall working groups on, and I'm speaking for them to a degree, but I think they're all for it. We've got to start getting that building in some sort of order.
So I guess I would say, so we appropriated 325,000, we're spending 92 on the roof. And it was 325 that would trigger, based on the assessed value, would trigger ADA compliance, right? We can't go over 30% of the assessed value. And that was 325, right? So are there other things that need to be done? And I don't expect an answer tonight, but we should think about, because we allocated the money for town hall. So are there other things in town hall that we can do, you know, in conjunction with a sprinkler or not, if that is a bigger project than the remaining balance of the money? I just think we should look at it. Otherwise it goes back to capital, right?
But in our meetings, I want to bounce back to it. The sprinkler is a baseline. To do anything with historic town hall, we have to have it sprinkled. Regardless of what happens to that building, we have to have the building in some sort of compliance. Am I correct in that? Because other than that, it remains a dead building.
Yeah.
At least this time, you know, put the key in the ignition.
Okay. Mr. Creighton.
Yeah, I think and we can't address this in its entirety this evening. But I do think that sprinklering the whole building, we should be mindful that one of the proposals is that maybe the old town hall is a separate entity legally, might be a condo structure, but that would not preclude having a joint sprinkler system. So I think it's very, very important to do that as soon as possible, because we've really kind of committed to keeping this building and doing whatever we're doing, but a sprinkler system, getting that done. And do you have a price for that roughly?
I don't recall what the price came.
Okay.
We haven't bid it yet, but I remember we did have estimates last year. We can dust those off and see what they can do.
I think it'd be helpful for the board to know, to flesh that out a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Great, thank you. I know that town hall working group, we're looking to find an agreeable date for everybody for the month of December. Okay, so next up, special town meeting, final prep and any votes that we need to take. So the prep really is to articulate if any one of us on any particular article wants to speak on the floor. So why don't we just go through it quickly, one by one. And Chris, if you don't mind, I'll just comment historically, the ones that you speak on. Which would be Article 1, amendments to fiscal 2025 operating budget. Chris usually speaks to that. Same with Article 2, same with Article 3. Same with Article 4. Article 5, Community Preservation Committee will get up and speak to that. Our vote is in there. I don't know if anyone feels compelled to get up and talk about it. We weren't presented actually with these items. I don't recall, or maybe I'm having a memory blank. But we typically don't speak on CPC. Okay, capital improvements. This will be water. We'll talk about their capital budget. We'll talk from the general fund. We're seeing the schools on Thursday, Chris, so I will tell them that they should be prepared to talk about their 2 items. And what about project 6? If there are any questions.
Yeah, and Chief Woodville will have his questions.
Okay. Okay, so if anyone on the board wants to speak at one of these, let me know, because we have to let the moderator know. Article 7, amendments to South Shore VOTEC High School Regional Agreement.
6, 6 and 5.
Will you speak to that, Chris?
That's fine.
Okay. Article 8, creation of the revolving fund for health, for the public health program. That would be you or Pam Fahey will be there to answer questions. Article 9, petitioning the legislature for additional all alcohol licenses. I will speak to that. Our vote is in. Amendments to Article 10, wind energy. So 10, 11, sorry, 12. Are these the rest of them? 12, 13.
All zoning.
They're all zoning. Yeah, that was going to be my point when I got to it. Article 14 is all zoning. Article 15 is zoning. Article 16 is zoning. Article 17 is zoning. So Tom Callahan and or the board, someone from the planning board will speak to all of those. I anticipate the only one that might have any conversation on the floor will be the new development impact mitigation bylaw.
I might want to speak to that.
You might want to speak to it.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is talk to Tom. You know, I was on through many iterations of the zoning bylaw, and I'd like to confer with Tom, and I may speak to one or more of them. I'm not sure which. I didn't know we were going to be assigning these things this evening. But I would like to talk to Tom and work together a strategy that makes sense.
Okay, well, I need to have it soon because town meeting is next Monday night and we did have final prep, so that's
I know.
what this is for. So, and then the last one, there'll be no reason to speak to it if it's withdrawn, if it's postponed indefinitely on the floor. So did I cover it pretty well? Okay. All right, so that's that. Okay. Now, no questions on special town meeting? Tracy, have we posted a meeting for that? All right, would you post a meeting for us, please? Okay, so now, town manager mid-cycle evaluation. Ms. Murray, if you would come up, please. Sure. We'll give him a minute. Shuffling of papers organized. Okay, so this is the town manager mid-cycle evaluation. We're halfway through the fiscal year. We still have half of the year to go. So it's not a complete evaluation. It's like it states mid-cycle, and we would expect not every goal is completed because they were year-long goals. And this is a compilation of all 5 of the individual evaluations from each select board member. So it's not going to cover every single comment every single member made, but it's going to summarize the commonalities of such. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Okay.
Correct. And if I may, just before we get started, all 5 of you participated, so all 5 of the rankings are included in the compilation. One thing I just wanted to remind the board members generally about how a performance evaluation occurs in a public session. When you're talking about an individual's job performance, that's all a matter for public session, like we're doing tonight. If there was any sort of concern about reputation, character, or any concerns that arguably could be something that could lead to discipline, those are all matters that have to be discussed in executive session. And we don't have an executive session scheduled. Well, we had one earlier for a different purpose. We don't have an executive session scheduled for any sort of purpose for discussing reputation, character, et cetera, this evening. So I want everyone to be mindful that I anticipate this becomes a bit of an interactive process. And as you think about some of your comments, remember, this is about job performance and not about anything else. With that, I will hand them out. So the first, you had basically your, the form that you agreed upon, you had basically 3 components to it. There's a 4th, but that is, depends upon what action, if any, the board wants to take. The first section had to do with performance goals. And for the benefit of folks who are listening at home, the scale was 1 to 3, with 1 being that the project had not been undertaken, 2 being that the project was in progress, and 3 meaning that the project had been completed. And I know, Madam Chair, that you just mentioned this is a mid-cycle review. So since we have not completed the fiscal year, it's not surprising that that you don't see anything has been completed yet, because a lot of things are still in progress. So in this particular category, the board had asked about progress with respect to the following goals. 1 being 41 Highland Avenue, Town Hall, and you just heard an update from Michelle on that. 135 King Street, again, you just heard an update on that. Cohasset Asset Management, Open Space and Recreation Initiatives, working with boards and committees, the zoning bylaw reform. And I think you just mentioned there's 6 or 7 zoning bylaws on for next week's town meeting. And then finally, some environmental issues that would include things like PFAS and the water treatment plant. Taking all 7 of those categories and all of your 5 ratings and then averaging them together, the total compiled rating for that first performance goal section is a 1.79, again, on a scale of 1 to 3. Some of the comments that seem to be in common
across the various evaluations are, the board has discussed a number of community relations and events, but that there hasn't been much follow through in getting those up and running. The zoning bylaw revisions are nearing completion, but still there's some work to be done on looking at revising or expanding the historic district. Monitoring and providing updates to the select board relative to PFAS, like that would relate to the number 7, the environmental issues component. And also the coastal zone management study that is expected to take place in the second half of this fiscal year. With respect to Town Hall on 135 King Street and the recreation initiatives, the board members noted that the town manager has certainly assumed a leadership role on what many of you consider to be a complex issue and with a lot of moving parts that has to be coordinated. But as we look to take over some of these or improve some of these facilities, there's also some concern that we need to also focus and develop on short-term and long-term maintenance plans for all town facilities. And a number of you also mentioned that with respect to boards and committees in particular, that the town manager does promote and recognize those who serve the town of Cohasset. The next section of your evaluation form focused on, or is entitled Job Performance. And again, it was on a scale of 1 to 3, with 1 meeting says needs improvements, 2 being meets expectations, and 3 exceeding expectations. The specific categories there that you were asked to evaluate were financial management, board and committee management, staffing and supervision, operational effectiveness, community engagement, and communication. And your composite average there came out to 2.19, again, on a scale of 1 to 3. Some common comments that board members raised was emphasizing the town manager's strong budgeting and financial skills, but then also recognizing that you have been without a finance director and or town accountant. Those are priorities for the board moving forward so that other priorities can be focused upon. Many of you noted that the town manager is a clear and concise communicator who displays a breadth and depth of experience and knowledge to provide support to this board. You noted that the town manager was an effective manager of staff, board, and committees, but that the town manager could increase his engagement, especially with volunteers and elected boards, to help develop or improve relationships there, and also to improve responsiveness to residents. Another area of looking for some improvement with respect to the town manager's time management. Again, I think that goes to the idea of responsiveness as well as availability with respect to the public, boards, staff, etc. Again, many of you noted that the town manager positively promotes the town, particularly through means of social media, which some of you noted was particularly helpful. And one other concern is we were talking, as you noted, that the finance director and town accountant hiring needs to become a priority. That also part and parcel with that is also ensuring consistency with respect to hiring practices. Part 3 was the overall performance, and this is really the section where many of you just offer a summary statement or some comments. It is a bit redundant with some of the things that were already mentioned, and to no surprise, you note that there are things that the town manager does very well and some areas that could use some improvement. Again, you emphasize on the positive budgeting and financial management, particularly in light of the fact that you've been without a finance director or a town accountant. And an area of improvement being time management and overall responsiveness. You all emphasized successes so far this year with respect to 135 King Street, certainly Town Hall, Beechwood Playground and the Milliken Tennis Courts, the creation and use of various stabilization funds to help fund specific capital projects such as the roads and sidewalks and schools. And you've noted again that the zoning bylaw project is nearing completion. As for room for improvement, many of you felt that an area of improvement is in improving communication and the flow of information to the board. And again, being able to better respond to time-sensitive matters or responsiveness to residents. And then finally, again, many of you noted that we need to focus on hiring financial staff and following clear and consistent hiring practices in filling those positions. So that, Madam Chair, that completes the compilation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. What is the protocol? Does Mr. Senior have an opportunity to respond, or do we have? I don't know who goes first in this.
It's fair to say, this is new for me as well. I have not been asked to do this before.
Okay.
So I don't know what your typical practice is. I would imagine, like I said, that it becomes interactive, whether it starts with the board members or it starts with the town manager. I guess I will defer to those who might have some
Question on this,
prior experience.
Yes.
because at the end, we're supposed to give an overall rating, a summary rating, where it's either exceeds expectations, meets expectations, or needs improvement. And so that wasn't aggregated, so there's 5 of us, and I'd like to know how many gave an exceeds expectation, how many gave a meets expectation, how many gave a needs improvement.
None of you filled this out in a consistent way. So it wasn't as though there was any one single response given. So there might be things that some noted exceeded expectations. And again, then some where meets expectations or that needs improvement was noted. But it wasn't as though there was just a single category that was highlighted or circled.
It was, I mean, so I guess my question is, out of the 5 of us, did 2 give an exceeds and 1 give a meets, and 2, what was the breakdown between the board?
I'd have to go back and look through to tell you
It's sort of
specifically.
Confidential, where you have 3 things to circle.
Right, I was gonna say, but not all of you completed that consistently. So, where some took more of a narrative approach. I don't know
I'm
that.
not asking to read the narrative,
Mhm.
where it says overall summary rating.
Right.
There's 3 categories, and you check one of them. So
And
that's what I wanted
not-
to know.
And not all of them were checked, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, out of the ones that did, what was the results of those, I guess?
I could go back and look. I didn't, since they weren't all done the same way, I didn't prepare a chart for that one.
Fair enough. I just wonder if that could be updated, so.
I could certainly do that.
And let's remember, this is a mid-cycle evaluation, because there wasn't one done in the spring, there wasn't one done the year before. Contractually, we're supposed to have an evaluation. I would, if it's all right with you, Mr. Senior, I'll open it up to each select board member to make brief comments, if there's anything they want to add or not add. And then we'll hear from you if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Farag.
I submitted mine. And I look forward to meeting with the town manager. I haven't been able to yet. I set a time period to meet with him, and that meeting was canceled a half hour before the meeting. So I look forward to going over these with him as soon as possible. So hopefully he can make the time to do that, because when I followed up with it, he didn't have the time to meet regarding it. And I don't know if anyone else had the same issue, or if everyone else was able to meet with him during the time period. And I realized there was some other extenuating circumstances. But I didn't know if everyone had the chance to meet at this time with him to go over
Are you asking us?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know two of us met with him prior based on the original schedule and process. So that's all that I know.
Madam Chair, may I just put in context for some? So two members completed their materials in the time originally established by the board, and I met with them in that time. The other three members did not. In fact, my evaluation was scheduled for November 19th. And it got postponed. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in the interim, which has radically changed my schedule. And while there was an effort made to accommodate meetings, the last 2 days just weren't possible as I came back. It's been an unusual week.
Right.
And I do plan to schedule times with everyone. And again, we're working with both a broken schedule and then my own personal family situation. So I do look forward to meeting the individual members, but was not able to.
Understood. Thank you. All right, Mr. Creighton?
I had the same situation. No follow-up meetings. I also, at the last minute, we changed this meeting from the 17th to tonight, which is really inconvenient, very difficult for my schedule, but I did manage to accommodate, and I reached out and I got a voicemail, which is, yesterday, and no further contact, so I was not able to, follow up, either, and I don't know who the other member who did not to do that, but anyway, I had a similar situation as Mr. Farag. I do think that moving a December 17th meeting to December 3rd at the last minute was very difficult. We all have various things that are going on, and I don't think they're as serious as Mr. Senior's losing his father. And I did try to accommodate that, but that wasn't possible. I just was disappointed initially moving it from the 17th, which gave us plenty of time, to the 3rd, which is basically, well, anyway, it's my comment on that.
Okay. Mr. Brady?
I met with the town manager, Chris, and so I have no comments on that, that period of time. So we met. Where I feel there's room for improvement. I will say on the, and Carolyn, forgive me, is that I didn't see the overall. Mine was more a narrative. I will say that. I was using the right form.
Yes.
I did not see, or I missed it, an overall performance category. I thought that we went topic to topic, and Chris and I discussed them at length over quite a few hours, and I suggested where I felt there was need for improvement, needs were being met, and what we're going to do going forward is a mid-year cycle. So that's where I kind of landed on that. But I did meet with him and was successful, and I was happy to do it.
Mr. Plex?
And as was reflected in my evaluation, I think Chris does a good job under the circumstances. I think we make his job hard. And I say we as the select board. There are things we're trying to accomplish as a town. And I think we as a select board could be more thoughtful of those goals in our interactions with town staff. But I do want to say that I appreciate Chris's willingness to work with us and continue working with us, and also the enthusiasm of town staff in trying to achieve the things that are important for Cohasset. And I think a lot of that is due to Chris's leadership. In spite of the headwinds that are put before them, and those headwinds include a variety of things, including some of the comments made by this board.
Oh, I'm up. Okay. I too met with Chris a while ago and shared my concerns, most of which were echoed here, the positive and the negative, and well, I shouldn't say negative, the things to work on, and as all of us in our professional lives know, we're not all perfect at what we do, but the important thing is to surround yourself with people who are good at the things that you're not good at. And I think Chris does a good job of that. I think he has a great staff. I think his, he works, as I said, at the employee recognition night, he's always giving credit to his staff on what they're doing. And as noted in the overall review, being present is really important. And I think, Mr. Plexi just kind of poked a thought in my head that perhaps after the holidays, a workshop meeting for the select board, for us to sit down, look at the goals we established, where we are, what we have left to do, what might have shifted or changed, do we have new goals, and talk about how we want to get there might be a good exercise for us to go through, as opposed, in lieu of a standard meeting, just so that we're all on the same page on the goals. And again, some things might not be important anymore, or some things might be done. So I'd like to recommend that to this board, that we do after the holidays. The second half gets consumed by budget and town meeting, which will be quite robust. And as Michelle presented to us tonight, it's going to be a lot to talk about with 135 King and 62 Elm Street. So, if people are open to that, that would be awesome. So, yeah, I don't really have anything further to add. I've had my comments with Chris and Carolyn. I thank you for doing this. It's challenging. Having a review in public is very challenging. I went through several with the school superintendents during my time on the school committee, and it's a hard thing to do. I don't know why, but it's a hard thing to do. So I appreciate your efforts on this and accommodating our ever-changing schedule. And I appreciate all the board for getting the evaluations done. So I'll leave it to Chris.
Thank you. As I did in the last couple of reviews that I'm part of, in a short message which I'll tonight. Tonight marks my first public review in more than 2 years, and I am grateful to the members of the select board who engaged in this process in good faith. Collaboration is a foundation for success in public sector work, and in a town meeting system with multiple boards and committees, collaboration is a requirement for getting anything accomplished at all. By working together, the Cohasset community has been able to celebrate the ribbon cutting of a new playground and basketball court in Beechwood. Work that involved multiple levels of board committee approvals, committee engagement, public bond issue based on Cohasset's AAA bond rating, staff management of a successful bidding and construction process, all before the ribbon could be cut and the gates open to many kids and parents. There's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes to get anything accomplished. I think often people forget how much actually goes on behind the scenes. There is a wizard, or I should say there's many wizards behind the curtain in Cohasset. Cohasset's new roads and sidewalks, the ongoing Milliken Tennis Court project, the successful application to the Massachusetts School Building Authority to help fund a new roof for the Osgood School, the planning underway for the new public safety building, these and many other projects, the result of lots of community members and staff working together to get things done. At next week's special town meeting, which will be my 21st town meeting in Cohasset, the community will vote on even more major projects, from proposed zoning bylaw amendments to funding for a critical new fire alarm system at the middle high school, to major investments in the town's water system, just to name a few. Working on this warrant has been underway for months, with staff and citizens side by side through dozens of meetings, often in the evenings. My office serves as the clearinghouse for all of that work. I am grateful for everyone who makes town meetings possible. I have been rolling up my sleeves, not literally tonight, because it's a little cold in here, and tackling these and other challenges here in Cohasset for more than a decade. And I am as enthusiastic about what we can accomplish together as I was on my very first day. My thanks to all of those who I've had the privilege to work alongside, and to the members of this board who provide the positive direction which makes every success.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could I add one thing? You have a wizard sitting to your right.
I do.
Maybe two,
That's behind the
actually
curtain.
two.
Two of them.
Yeah,
You were behind the curtain, I apologize.
so she's the great and powerful.
Great and powerful.
The voice. Voice.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. Much appreciated and, back in the spring. Okay, next up, town manager update.
I think you've heard a lot tonight. The only thing I do want to say is I really do appreciate the sympathies and the outpouring support from so many members in the community and the people I work with. I'm passing my dad. He lived a good long life. He was almost 91. I said it was sudden and right before the holidays. So I do appreciate everyone's strength and support and wishes.
Select board comments, Mr. Plex,
Nothing to add tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Grady,
No, I'm in a good place tonight, thank you.
Mr. Creighton.
I just would say that I'm very disappointed the way this evaluation, because we were basically told that many of the issues that are outstanding, which have been very evident to members of the community, especially in the past 2 or 3 months, we're told we can't bring that up, which kind of makes it so this is a meaningless, exercise, because there were some very, very serious outstanding issues which caused great consternation throughout the town. And yet we're told that we can't bring that up. So that's very disappointing. Thank you.
Mr. Farag.
Great, thank you. Since it's been a couple of weeks and we've gone through Thanksgiving, I just want to put out the word, and I think all the select board agrees, to congratulate the Cohasset soccer team, which won the state title most recently. And then also to the Cohasset football team, which won in the rain in the Thanksgiving Day game 51-0, which is probably, I think, the largest winning margin that we've ever had over Hull in all those years. And so again, a great thank you to congratulate those two teams and all the other fall sports teams as they now look towards the winter sports. So with those, I want to make sure that the board congratulate them on the excellence and once again, bringing the trophy home to Cohasset on Thanksgiving. So thank you.
What must have been that defensive coach?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. I was going to mention that. And winter sports started yesterday. So I have nothing to say. I want to thank everyone for bearing with us through this extended, we have minutes, approval of minutes of November 6th. Did everyone have a chance to review them?
I did not.
Okay.
Pretty profound.
Yeah, okay, so,
I have no objection to it. I just said
okay. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 6th?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. There's no topics. We have a motion to adjourn at 9:21.
So moved.
So.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. So Mr. Grady moved it, Mr. Plex seconded, Tracy. Thank you.